we're so thankful. We're so thankful to have everybody here. Sorry, the recording thing threw me. We're so grateful to have everybody here. There's a lot of members and partners that had prior obligations or just getting through everything that September and August has thrown at us. So we will be hosting there's a recording of this, and we'll be hosting this on our YouTube channel. And we will also be sending out the presentation to those on our email list. So if you are not on our email list, go to communitycoalitionsofidaho.org and get on, sign up to be on our list, and we can get you plugged in, and you will get all of the wonderful opportunities that we send out throughout the month through CCI. So Lindsey and Cas are here from Project Filter, and I'm going to hand this over to them and let them do the presentation.
Thank you so much, David, and thank you so much to CCI for allowing us to come and present to you guys today. Cas and I are thrilled to be here and talk about Project Filter and talk about the resources that we offer, information about vaping, information to help you with education and prevention efforts. My name is Lindsey DeBoer. I am the vaping coordinator, and I'm just going to introduce Cas. She'll have her own portion in the middle of the presentation, but Cas Adams is our health equity specialist, very passionate about all things health equity and health systems work in Idaho in terms of tobacco prevention and control. So thank you again for having us very much. Cas, if you hit the next slide, please. So today, a few things that we're going to discuss. We want to talk about, what is Project Filter, discuss our goals, the programs that we have, the services that we offer. We really want to highlight resources and free services that we offer throughout the state. And hopefully you can take that information and you can share broadly with your networks. We're going to talk about Vaping 101, so high level of vaping data and in Idaho, just to sort of set the stage, talk about some resources that we offer in terms of schools presentations. Cas is going to run down for you what that presentation would actually look like in schools. It's totally free. Our tobacco coordinators can do this presentation. We have sponsored athletes that can do this presentation, and they're amazing and very engaging. And so we're going to run through that for you all. And then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into information that we don't really share with students, but are really important to know for adults, like how to identify vapes and other important pieces. And then finally, we'll have some time at the end for a question and answer. All right, next slide, please. So, like I said, we represent Project Filter, which is Idaho's tobacco prevention and control program. And everything we do at Project Filter is geared towards achieving these 4 main goals. And so the first goal is to prevent initiation of tobacco use among youth, really focusing, on that piece, especially vaping. We know that this is a problem statewide, it's a problem nationwide, and just really working to look at data and to look at what can we do to really counter market and counter the effects of these tobacco and vaping companies among youth. Promoting tobacco cessation among users. So if people are already vaping, people that chew, smoke, all forms of tobacco, how can we drive them to our cessation services? And how can we promote that broadly throughout the state? Number 3, eliminating exposure to secondhand smoke. And that's a really important part of our equity piece, because we know that secondhand smoke is so damaging, cancer causing, and just trying to promote smoke-free spaces, smoke-free policies to really reduce exposure. And then finally, identifying and eliminating tobacco-related disparities among the populations that are the most burdened by and harmed by tobacco products. Next slide, please. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Idaho Quitline. And so this is an amazing resource offered in Idaho, and it is totally free for anyone in the state. There's so many programs that are specialized depending upon, the type of person that's calling. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But the Quitline is free. People can enroll online. People can enroll call over the phone. They can have free coaching services. They'll help them come up with an individualized quit plan. It's available 24/7. So if somebody is experiencing a craving in the middle of the night, they can call the quit line and, the quit coach will talk them through it. It doesn't matter their insurance status, their income. Again, like I said, it's totally free. The quit line is available to everyone. They have specialized programs for youth, but if an adult calls who's 18 years or older, they are eligible to receive up to 8 weeks of free nicotine patches, gum, and lozenges. And then they'll work with their quit coach and help them, identify triggers, as much or as little as the person is comfortable with. So there's an online program if somebody doesn't really want to talk to someone on the phone, that's an option too. So that is sort of everything we're doing in terms of cessation. We're trying to drive people to this amazing resource because we know that it works and it helps people to quit. All right, next slide, please. So here's some programs and services that we offer that's part of the Quit Line, and we're very proud to offer these resources to people who live in Idaho. So one is a pregnancy and postpartum program. So if a woman who's calling and who's pregnant interested in quitting smoking, or just had a baby and wants to quit smoking, they can get up to $65 in cash gift cards based on their participation, their continued participation during pregnancy and postpartum. And so there's also an American Indian quit line, and we have Native quit coaches. And so they're trained and to deliver culturally appropriate coaching to individuals who are Native American. We also have a program for youth and young adults. If a youth is under 18, there's a special program that's designed specifically for youth and teens, and it's a live text program, which is really great because we know that teens really like to be on their cell phones. They're not really interested in talking. They want to text someone. So for this, they text Start My Quit to 36072. And that short code, and that would direct them directly to a program called My Life, My Quit, which is affiliated with the Quit Line, but it's just special for youth. And then we have Spanish-speaking coaches. We have a behavioral health program for individuals struggling or individuals who deal with behavioral health issues in their daily life. So if anyone's experiencing depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, ADHD, PTSD, and substance use disorder, we have coaches that are specifically trained to deliver quit services for the specific population and provide them extra support. So just some other options, and know that based on someone calling the Quit Line and the information that they provide, they can direct them and channel them into the correct program that fits their needs. Next slide, please. So I just want to highlight, this is the youth program that I was talking about, the My Life, My Quit program. So if you know of youth who need to quit, whether that be smoking, vaping, any sort of tobacco product, they can visit mylifemyquit.com to enroll, or they can text Start My Quit to 36072. And that program is designed specifically for teens. It's free. It's also anonymous, so they're not going to tell their parents that they're enrolled in this program, because we know that that is a concern as well, like the confidentiality piece. So this is just a resource that you can highlight with individuals that that work with youth. Next slide, please. So how to enroll in the Quit Line? There's a couple of ways. Healthcare providers can refer someone to the Quit Line. There's also, they can sign up online, projectfilter.org, or call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of resources. People can get a personalized quit plan and a live quit coach 24/7. So, it's a pretty great resource for free. And depending on what information they provide to them upon intake, they will channel them into the program that's appropriate for them. Next slide. So if you or someone is a healthcare professional and they're looking for resources that Project Filter can provide for them, we do offer quite a few resources. We have referral fax pads, so providers, and they can be personalized to have maybe like the clinic logo in addition to Project Filter, and so they can write up a fax referral and fax it directly to the Quitline and enroll a patient that way. We have provider toolkits, which provides information about the Quitline, and we also have e-referral implementation. So this is an amazing resource where Project Filter will cover all costs of implementing an e-referral system or adding on to their existing one, I guess is what I should say. It adds on and is compatible with their existing electronic health record to help do a referral as a part of their electronic health record system. And this is just makes referrals completely easy. It's a great value, and all costs of this the technical assistance, purchasing the, anything that they need, technically the training is all covered by Project Filter. So, if there's anyone or any clinic that that's interested in these types of resources, just please reach out to us. And, we're always looking to add more health systems on. Next slide, please. Idaho Health Tools, I want to highlight, and it's a pretty amazing resource for anyone in the community that's really looking for, materials related to Project Filter or smoking. We have brochures and wallet cards that highlight aspects of our program, talks about highlighting the Quitline can be passed out. We have flyers and fact sheets. We have posters, brochures that can be posted up around community centers, around schools. We have smoke and vape free signage. And the website you can see below is Idaho Health Tools .dhw.idaho.gov. But if you just Google Idaho Health Tools, it will allow you to access that. And then you can order it. It's totally free, and we will ship it to your business or place, wherever needs to be sent. Next slide, please. This, I want to highlight this vaping brochure. It's available in English and Spanish, and it's really geared towards, youth or parents. It could be in the school nurse's office, health clinics. It talks about the benefits, what you can gain from quitting vaping, sort of takes that perception of what do you gain if you give up vaping. And then it gives some tips for quitting, and it highlights the My Life, My Quit program. So if somebody is interested in, quitting vaping or any tobacco product, they can access My Life, My Quit. And like I mentioned, it is available from Idaho Health Tools, and it's available in English and in Spanish. Next slide. Another fantastic resource that we have is we have a partnership with the Idaho Radar Center through Boise State. And this is an amazing place because we send them a ton of our print materials and resources. And they have, not just stuff about tobacco, but they have information and resources about any substance misuse and substance use disorder. So this was just a screenshot that I took of the resources for tobacco and e-cigarettes. And you can sort of see, but they have all these other categories of substance use resources as well. And it's totally free. They also have a video lending library. And if you Google Boise State Radar Center, and the website is down there at the bottom. And I know that these slides will be shared with you after the presentation, so you'll be able to have access to all these links. But it's just it's a great and free resource for your needs and to help with tobacco and many other substances as well. Next slide, please. Another resource I wanted to offer and to highlight here is our resources for schools. So you already saw the vaping brochure, and that's something that we know that schools, around the state are really struggling with, and we really want to provide them with materials and resources to help. On the left, you'll see our flyer that we have that highlights the free resources for schools that Project Filter offers. It talks about the My Life, My Quit program. It talks about our print materials, how we can provide them, the schools, with vaping education presentations. So we have sponsored athletes and that can do these awesome school presentations. And you're actually going to get a peek into what that would look like by Cas today. So that's pretty awesome. So you're going to see what the kids would see if we did the presentation in the school. And it provides amazing information. And the athletes that we sponsor are so engaging and just really demonstrate, hey, this is what you gain by living a smoke-free life. This is what you can achieve. And this is how I wouldn't be able to do what I do here as a competitive athlete if I chose to smoke or vape or chew. So it's pretty incredible. And this flyer is available on Idaho Health Tools and is available for schools. And all of this is free. And we're just happy. And we want to get in there. We want to do prevention messaging for schools. And one thing that we're working on currently is trying to develop activities and curriculum for elementary schools. We know that kids are starting to vape as early as 8 years old. And it's really heartbreaking. And we really want to make sure that not only are we reaching high school and middle school, but we have content and material for elementary schools as well. So that's something that's in the works. And just want you guys to know, the information that's and resources that are out there. And so please share, because we're happy to partner with any schools that want us to come in. All right, next slide, please. Another thing we're working on is this Alternatives to Suspension program pilot. And what we can do with Project Filter is if a school is interested in implementing nicotine and tobacco cessation and education as an alternative to suspending a student who's caught either possessing or using nicotine or vaping tobacco products, we can provide them with guidance on how to best implement a policy like this. What we're working on right now is we're working with Job Corps, which is a school that allows students to get trained in different vocational aspects. And we're so grateful to have a partnership with them and the American Lung Association to implement their in-depth program as an alternative to suspension. And this was at the request of Job Corps. They took a look at the various options available to them. And so that was what we did. We gathered the options, we presented it to Job Corps, and they selected one that best met and fit their needs. And so they really like the in-person aspect of in-depth. And so we are going to work with them to provide facilitation and have somebody from the American Lung Society facilitate a training and do this as a pilot and see how it goes. Our goal is to create a school implementation guide for an alternative to suspension program so that we can highlight best practices, lessons learned, and then distribute that more broadly throughout the state. But if any school is interested in, that you guys know, that are interested in doing something like this, then it would be really amazing to have them get a hold of us so that we could, help walk them through it and present them with the options that are available to them and try to support them, as much as we can, because we know that kids that are caught, using tobacco products, they're probably addicted to nicotine and they need support. And so just suspending them alone is not going to be effective. And we want to, keep them in school as much as we can. So, that's something that we're working on, and we love to, increase our reach and network with more schools. So please send them our way if you know of anyone that might be interested. Next slide, please. So I do want to say I'm going to share the main message behind this. Unfortunately, due to some technical issues, I can't share with you these videos. Oh, however, wait. Oh, is it working, Cas?
Did it? Oh,
it started playing.
Could you hear it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, maybe so hold on. Don't click it. We're going to see. Okay, so maybe it'll work. Fingers crossed. Can you go back one? Thank you. So what we are doing is we are partnering with different youth groups to create anti-vaping, anti-smoking PSAs. Oh, it's going to play. Okay. So what we would love is if any of you guys work with youth groups or know of anyone that might be interested in developing a PSA, we have a relationship with Idaho Broadcasting Association and Catalyst Marketing, and they're amazing. And they will take these youth developed PSAs and blast them throughout Idaho on TV and radio. And the youth make the script, they help record, and they are able to sit and participate in part of the editing process. And so I wanted to just share with you one of the examples that the Shoshone-Bannock tribe created, and it's called Don't Be Dumb. I love it. I think it's totally adorable, and I think it's a great prevention message and something that they should be very proud of. So Cass, if you would play that for me.
Yeah, hopefully we can hear it. If not, again, these slides will be shared with you. So let's give that a shot.
My job to teach you. Hey, don't be dumb. Better to be running with scissors. Being a brother is a 24/7 job. Don't be dumb. Look both ways for crossing the road. It's a lot of work looking up for my sister, yo. Like, you can share some of it. Yeah, sure, yo.
Hey, don't be dumb.
I can't do this. She's right.
Sometimes my brother thinks he knows best, but it's my job to look after her too.
Don't be dumb.
So thanks. I could hear it, so I hope you guys could hear it too. And if not, it will be available on the CCI, website, and also we have that on our Project Filters YouTube page as well. So we are very grateful for this partnership with the Shoshone-Bannock Tribe, and we're grateful that they allowed us to work with them to develop this PSA and broadcast it throughout the state. So they did an amazing job, and I love showing that video because I really think it's just a testament to what can be done and some amazing prevention messages from those kids. So, yeah, like I said, we're always looking for new groups of youth to work with to develop these public safety announcements. So if you know of anyone that's interested, like I said, just send them our way. Next slide, please. Another project that we are currently working on is some social media counter marketing. And as part of our strategic planning process, we learned that youth, they know that vaping is bad, but they want to hear from experts in the field and from, just really authentic videos about why it's a problem and why they shouldn't do it. And so one of the projects that we are working on currently is we are expanding our social media presence on Snapchat and TikTok, and we are interviewing we're interviewing experts throughout the state. It could be pediatricians, it could be respiratory therapists. This one that I'm going to show you, it's just a little clip. It's not even finalized yet, but this is from youth from Job Corps, just talking about why they choose not to vape and how they've showed that how vaping has impacted their friends. And so we're recording them now, we're cleaning them up and editing them, and then we're going to blast them out through social media. And so, just trying to provide the information that youth, as we listen to them, we're trying to provide them with the information that they are looking for to make a healthy choice. All right, Cassidy, play that for me.
My name is Colton Molia, and I am 21. I choose not to vape for a very simple reason. I am asthmatic, and any form of inhalation of smoke or anything like that could potentially kill me. I have a friend who I won't say his name to protect innocent, but he's been smoking for a long, long time. I think around middle school, and whenever I want to go do activities or whatnot, we always have to make sure that there's like a chair somewhere outside or inside so that he can sit down. And it kind of hinders a lot of things because we'll go on a walk or something, but we have to plan it out first.
So that was just a quick clip. It goes on for longer than that. And so we're recording these videos that are about 15 minutes long, and then we're going to chop them up into the most impactful pieces, and then create different videos on Snapchat and TikTok. And we're also developing information for parents and targeting that on Facebook specifically. So, just trying to do various, things to try to connect with people where they are, especially on social media. So, okay, next slide, please.
My name is...
So this next portion, I'm just going to give a little, a broad overview of Vaping 101 in the state of Idaho based on the survey data and, other pieces of information that we've received so that we can set the stage. So this study was done for us by Rescue Agency, and it's the Idaho Vaping Study. It was done in May of 2020 to try to gather information about, why people were choosing to vape, where they're getting their vape, their attitudes about vaping. And so I'll share just a little bit of that data with you. If you're interested in the full study, I'm happy to share that with you as well. Just please reach out. Next slide. So this study talked about took a representative sample of youth in Idaho, and they asked them questions to try to understand their use of vaping, what their perceptions were, how susceptible they were to vapes if they said that they didn't. And this survey revealed that, about vape use, every use was reported by 32% of teens, and current past 30-day use was reported by 19% of teens. And that's pretty consistent with some of the other data that we have from the Youth Risk Behavior Study. And so we know that when people vape, they're not just vaping nicotine. They can switch the substances out. They're vaping. We're the tobacco program, so we focus mostly on nicotine, but we know that that's a big issue, is that they're also vaping marijuana and other substances. And people that vape are also more likely to use many different types of substances as well. All right, next slide, please. One of the things that we really want to highlight here is that the average age of first vape use is 14. And so what that lets us know is the Tobacco Prevention Control Program and in our vaping efforts is that we really need to target these prevention messages, middle school and lower. And from, anecdotally, what I'm hearing when I attend conferences and talk to school administrators is that, sixth graders, a lot of them are seeing, like the elementary schools that have sixth graders included, they're seeing the products used among sixth graders as well, which is, really sad. And so it just really lets us know that prevention messaging needs to go, much younger and start in elementary schools as well. This information shared with us, like, where do they get their vape? A lot of times they're borrowing it from someone else. Somebody else bought it for them. And then you can see the smaller percentages took them from a store, got them online, but mostly they're borrowing it from someone else. Then 74% of youth are trying their vape as the first tobacco product. So we know it is becoming a gateway. And the problem that we're seeing, if you go to the next slide, Cass, if you take a look at the blue box on the right, it says vape users susceptible to cigarettes. If people are already using vapes, they're very likely to be transitioning to combustible cigarettes within a couple of years. So we know that's true in Idaho, that's true nationwide. So it is a gateway product for tobacco use. And then on the left-hand side, where you see susceptible to vaping, they surveyed the youth that responded that they were not current vape users, and they asked them questions like, if your friend gave you a vape, would you try it? Like, a series of questions that tried to assess whether someone would be prone to vaping or susceptible to it. And 53% of youth that were not current vapers were susceptible to vaping. So just knowing that, it's just so ubiquitous, it's out there, it's a problem, and this helps us hone in on what the perceptions are and where we need to do our targeting. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Cass now, who is going to, show you all what information that if a school decides to have a school presentation, what information that they would receive. So that's all for me, and take it away, Cass.
Hey, thanks, Lindsay. That was such awesome information. Just a reminder, everyone, take a breath, take a breather, do some stretching. Let's get into the school presentation, like Lindsay said. So this is the presentation that we or our athletes give to youth in schools. So I'm going to kind of walk through the presentation as if I were giving it to students, but instead of you answering questions back, I'll kind of just let you know what types of questions we do ask in the presentation to make it engaging and to get the students involved. So just some overall context, I guess, for this presentation. The target audience right now is youth ages 12 to 19. So like Lindsay said, we are working on finding and gathering resources and that we can promote to kids at a younger age, because we are finding that onset of vaping is happening a lot earlier. So really the point of this presentation, hopefully we're reaching some kids that haven't started vaping yet, hopefully we're reaching kids that have started vaping and want to quit. So the target audience, again, is really middle to high school age students. We encourage presenters to use plain language that like avoids jargon and complicated terms. Like students want to hear, like Lindsey said, they want to hear things straight, but we also don't want to like act like we're bigger and better than them. So we really just want to use language that is easily understandable. We want to really focus on the students as much as possible. This presentation, as you'll see, has very little words on them. And we do that on purpose because we really want to engage the students directly. We encourage participation, and we try to really use engaging tones and body language. And a part of that also is that we don't use scary, shameful, or really guilt-invoking language. We really try to avoid those things. Project Filter's brand is very positive and uplifting. So, we encourage presenters to really avoid anything that might scare them or make them feel bad. That's really not why we're there. Of course, some of these things are scary and some of these things are negative, but, this is really about the benefits of being tobacco-free, commercial tobacco-free, and of being vape-free. So, we also can talk about how we really shouldn't answer any questions we don't know. Our athletes, if they don't know the answer to a question, they say, thanks for that question. I'm not aware of the answer. And then they come to us and we then provide that information back to the educator. So that's just a little bit of context. On this slide, we hope that, we introduce themselves and the athletes are really cool and they're a lot cooler than I am, at my desk job working for the state of Idaho. So we encourage them to just say, hey, this is who I am. Like, this is why I'm tobacco free. This is why I'm vape free. I couldn't do what I do. I couldn't be a professional motocross athlete. I couldn't be a professional bull rider if I was addicted to nicotine, and here's why, and kind of really get the ball rolling with that information. Okay, so during this presentation, we discuss the history of tobacco and vaping. We talk about what's in tobacco and vape products. We briefly go over the health risks of tobacco use and vaping. We also discuss trends. Okay, how many youth are vaping? What are we seeing? And then we kind of finish the presentation really with why youth vape. And we hope that by understanding why youth vape, like what are the tactics that the vaping industry uses to target youth, hopefully, that information really allows the youth to make a more informed decision about what they're putting into their body, what decisions they're making with their day-to-day life. So that's kind of the format of the presentation. So I'm hoping you all will learn a little bit from me today as well. This is some things you might already know, and you might also learn some things too. So first I asked students, how long do you think people have been using tobacco? And you'll get lots of answers. And after, we kind of allow the students to discuss, I go over and explain that people have been using tobacco for thousands of years. And they've been using tobacco for medicinal and ceremonial purposes. Our indigenous people, the people that were here on this land before we were, have been using tobacco ceremonially and in a sacred way for thousands and thousands of years. And it really wasn't until the late 1800s that cigarette smoking became so popular. And we ask why, what was happening in the late 1800s? And sometimes they'll guess correctly, and the answer is the Industrial Revolution. So just post-Industrial Revolution, this great guy, created the manufacturing of cigarettes. So beforehand, people were like rolling their own cigarettes and having to buy all the individual pieces and making their own. It really wasn't used in mass. It was being used recreationally at that point, but it became after this invention of this manufacturing, it became so much easier for people to buy and use cigarettes. Okay, so almost 50 years later, though, we find this first statistical link between cancer and smoking. And unfortunately, what we were seeing, scientists were seeing many people in hospitals dying of lung cancer. And they just were like, I don't understand, like, why is this happening? And so researchers asked all of these patients a bunch of questions. So they said, you know, what's your lifestyle? What's your occupation? What are your habits? You know, they asked many, many questions. And what do you think they all had in common? And, you know, the answer to that is that they all smoked cigarettes. Smoking was something that they all had in common. And from there, we continued to learn about smoking's impact on people's health, such as the increased risk for diabetes, heart disease, other cancers, most cancers, mental health issues, COPD, asthma, many others. The list goes on. Okay, and you know, we've continued to learn about the negative impact of commercial tobacco use. 40 years after that, radio and TV ads were outlawed. So I know in my lifetime, I've never seen or heard a radio or TV ad for cigarettes. And the reason why they banned these ads is because the tobacco industry was marketing to children. They were using images like Santa Claus or the Flintstones, and the tobacco industry had to just find another way to advertise through billboards, you know, point of sale, magazines, in-store ads. Even knowing how addictive and harmful these products were, they still had to figure out a way to, you know, sell their products. So in 1998, I've got my kid here that came up next to me, gonna present with me. So in 1998, which was about 30 years later after radio and TV ads were outlawed, the federal government actually sued the 4 largest tobacco companies in the country for continuing to advertise to kids. They just couldn't stop. So the tobacco industry knew that if they hooked kids early or made smoking look cool early, they would more than likely have a lifelong customer. You know, it's addicting. Fortunately, the government won, and they won big. So the tobacco industry has to pay most of the states in this country millions of dollars every year. Idaho actually uses this money from the tobacco industry every year to help people quit smoking and try to educate people about tobacco and vaping. So that's really how we actually are paid to be here right now, which I think is pretty neat. So, history of vaping, not quite as long as thousands of years, but back in 2003, China rolled out their first modern e-cigarette. In 2006, the first e-cigarette entered the US market. These e-cigarettes looked a lot like, you know, regular cigarettes. They're long, they're skinny, like, you know, like just the regular cigarette that you see people use. And they were originally created for people who wanted to quit smoking. We'll learn, though, that kind of has evolved over time. In 2015, Juul, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Juul, launched in the US, and it just quickly took over the vaping market. You know, and most kids know what Juul is, although now we're actually kind of seeing some new things. Within 2 years, they actually became the most popular vaping device in the country. And they became the most popular vaping device among youth, even though Juul claimed that their market was adult smokers. So we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I just kind of wanted to throw that in there. Not long after that, Altria bought 35% of Juul. And I asked the students, do any of you know who Altria is? And most students shake their head, no, I don't know who Altria is. So I asked, hey, what about Philip Morris? Do any of you know who Philip Morris is? And some of them do, but most of them don't. And then I asked, what about Marlboro cigarettes? What about the Marlboro Man? And most students nod their head. They're like, yeah, I know that. So the company that makes Marlboro cigarettes is actually a tobacco company, and Altria is the company that does Marlboro cigarettes. And so they bought 35% of Juul. So, many other vaping companies as well. We're seeing that this is happening with the tobacco industry just kind of getting their way into the vaping industry. So we ask students, consider this: when you see advertising for vapes, could you be actually being advertised to by the tobacco industry? And other, like I said, other vape companies are kind of tied into tobacco industry. It's really hard to kind of really know. So I just ask, it's really hard to trust what vaping companies are advertising, who they're advertising to, who is paying for these advertisements. It's really hard to know and trust. But in 2020, a flavor ban went into effect, but that law really only applied to pod-based products. Pod-based products are like a Juul, where you have a pod and it clicks into your vape, and then once the e-liquid is done, you take the pod out and then you put a new pod back in. This pod-based flavor ban didn't apply to mint or tobacco flavored products. So what we're seeing is that other vaping companies could still sell their products because they are in a pod-based system. So it really, it did some good, but at the end of the day, really there was still a lot of access to vaping products. And because of this pod ban, disposable vapes like Puff Bar have become increasingly popular. They're cheaper, they're more convenient. Really, it's just an entire vape. You use it and, you throw it away. But with that comes more vaping litter. Did you know that e-cigarettes are actually hazardous waste? Terrible for the environment. It's really harmful. And with that also comes even more and more nicotine for young people to become addicted to. So it's not that this was an accident. The vaping industry knows that this is what happens. When one thing gets banned, they create something else that will become even more popular with youth. Okay, so as you can see, there's lots of things in vapes. Way more than just water. We've highlighted nicotine and flavors. They're in orange. We'll talk about those a little later. But there's a lot of other things on this list that we're finding in vape products. And this isn't an exhaustive list. And everything on here isn't in every single vape. But these are just some of the things that we're seeing. I asked students what ingredients stand out to them. And a lot of times they look at the stuff on the left and they say, aluminum, copper, like arsenic, like where does that come from? And, we just explained that a lot of this stuff either comes from the e-juice itself, or if it's a metal, it actually comes from when the heating element is heated up. Those fine particles get into the e-liquid and then it's going into our lungs. Okay, so we just gotta have a conversation about anything that comes up for them. Nicotine is obviously a big concern because of how addicting it is. It's actually one of the most addicting substances on the planet. There's actually very few drugs that are actually harder to quit than nicotine. It's just because nicotine reaches your brain very quickly. It leaves you high and then it drops down very quickly. And then you kind of get into that addiction cycle where in order to feel good again, you got to take that nicotine again. And it happens so fast and then it takes you down really fast. And that's why it's really one of the more addicting substances. And then of course their flavors, very appealing. I like flavors for sure, but they're definitely not meant to be inhaled in our lungs. And while there aren't as many known chemicals in vape juices and vape products as there are in cigarettes, there are over 7,000 of them, by the way, 7,000 chemicals in cigarettes. and 70 of them cause cancer, there are still those short-term and long-term impacts of nicotine, flavors, and these other chemicals that get into our lungs when we use tobacco or vape products. Okay, so a little bit about the health impact. As we mentioned earlier, nicotine in both cigarettes and vapes, any other kind of tobacco product, it's one of the most addicting substances in the world, and really particularly impacts young people because your brains are still developing. You know, I ask students, you know, when does their brain become fully developed? And the answer to that is about 25. Sorry, my kid is asking me a question. We're about 25 when our brains fully develop. When our brains aren't fully developed, the nicotine reaches your brain even more quickly than it would in adults. And it can literally make it harder for young people to concentrate and to develop. It can cause mood disorders, and it just is all around not a good deal for developing brains. The way that it reacts with developing brains put people at risk for depression, and with how difficult life can be for young people, that's just something that we don't want to see added on to what is already, you know, a challenge for young people. Plus, it can also be expensive to be addicted. All of these things, you know, can make it harder to do the things you love to do. I like to have a conversation with the youth about what they love to do. What are they passionate about? How would this impact them if they were addicted to a substance and they couldn't do what they love to do? And so we try to just have a conversation about those things with the youth to just really get them thinking about their own reasons. So not only does addiction make it harder to physically, you know, do the things we're doing, you know, that we love to do, it costs money. Addiction costs more and more over time. Vaping and smoking also hurts the people around us. The aerosol that comes out of vapes, which is the stuff that kind of looks like cigarette smoke, it's not just water vapor, as well as secondhand smoke, both of those can cause or do contain harmful chemicals that other people have to then inhale. And our lungs are only meant for two things. And I asked the students, okay, what are those two things? And those two things are oxygen and carbon dioxide. Our lungs are not meant for anything else. Inhaling aerosol from vaping products is actually known to cause asthma attacks. And so we really want to avoid this stuff in the air, really, you know, wherever we can. This unfortunately has also poisoned little kids and animals who get a hold of these like kid-friendly looking vape juices and who drink them. We'll take a look at those a little later, but you know, those products look really appealing to young people, and then they end up actually drinking them, and poison control calls have gone up immensely over the last several years, and it's just really a bad deal all around. Okay, so this is a video, and we're gonna watch this video, and we won't discuss it in this webinar, but what we would then do with the youth is we would watch the video, and then we would talk about how what they thought about the video, is it relevant to them, and all those things. So let's take a look and see if this works.
We're surrounded by viruses. If you're young and healthy, most don't pose a threat. But if you vape, you could be breaking down your body's ability to defend itself. The chemicals in vapor, like propylene glycol, glycerol, and metal particles, damage your lungs on a cellular level. And that damage in here leaves you at risk to the viruses out there. Get the sick truth about vaping at behindthehaze.com.
Awesome. So that is a video by a rescue agency who we work with, and they create some really awesome videos for vaping prevention. And so with the youth, we would just kind of talk about that video for a little bit. But we can move on for the sake of this webinar and talk a little bit about COVID-19 and vaping. As explained in the video, vaping can damage your lungs. It makes people more susceptible to viruses like the coronavirus. People who vape are actually 5 to 7 times more likely to test positive for COVID and 5 times more likely to have COVID-19 symptoms. And we kind of talk a little bit about why that is. And really, it's because vaping damages our lungs, making it harder to, fight off viruses. And, as we've learned about COVID-19, we really want to do the best that we can to protect our lung health, even as a young person. Okay, so a little bit about use among youth. Any guesses, for what percentage of Idaho high schoolers have tried vaping? And we get all sorts of answers, and the youth really know better than we do, but we kind of try to get them to talk about how many they think in Idaho have tried vaping. And what we've learned from our surveys is actually about half of Idaho high school students have tried vaping at least once. And a lot of times the kids will kind of laugh at us, and because to them that number seems really low. But really this could be different for a number of reasons. It could be because the surveys ask questions that youth don't, like using words that youth don't really use, like, do you use e-cigarettes? And kids, a lot of the times, students are going to be like, I don't use e-cigarettes, I vape or I Juul or I puff or whatever. And so we're not really asking the right questions, number one. And another thing is just because sometimes teenagers don't want to be honest about what they're doing. I know when I was a teenager, I could relate to that. So it's hard to get for sure a complete picture, but this is what we really do know. As of 2019, in the nation, 1 in 5 high school students vape, so that's 20%. And then in middle school, 1 in 20. So it gets more as we get older, as kind of was indicated earlier in terms of, when youth start to use nicotine products, it can start earlier, but it can also start as they get into high school. Okay, so why is vaping so popular among youth? I really want to learn from them. So I asked them, what do they think? Like, what is going on in their lives? Why do they vape? Why do their friends vape? I just, give students opportunities to discuss. And there's a lot of reasons, but we're actually just going to talk about 3 specifically. So this is Freebase nicotine, which is the form that nicotine usually comes in. The exact chemical structure is really not important for this conversation, but what is important is knowing that Freebase nicotine is highly alkaline, and it makes nicotine really harsh and difficult to take in. The nicotine in newer e-juices and pods were actually chemically changed to something called nicotine salts, which is basically an acidic substance now. So the CH3 that was added to Freebase nicotine actually lowers that alkaline level. It makes that hit of nicotine a lot more smooth and easier to take in. And the problem with this is that it's intentionally making vaping more appealing. So when the hit is smoother, people are more likely to enjoy it, use it a lot, and then it turns into a dependence on nicotine, and it's going to happen much faster. Cigarettes, of course, with the Freebase nicotine is still very harmful to anyone who uses them. So regardless really of the source that the nicotine is coming from, addiction to nicotine really can get in the way of a lot of things we love to do and, the passions that we have. So Juul, other companies are really heavily invested in addicting people to their products. And then I kind of asked them, okay, tell me why you think, in your own words, why they would change the chemical structure of nicotine. Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they they keep it the way it is. And, you know, we try to get the students engaged in having that conversation about how the vaping industry really, it's not about, you know, being nice and kind and doing something good. It's about making money and addicting young people to their products. Okay, so take a look at these flavors on this slide. I mean, what do these flavors look like? You know, I see like Sour Patch Kids and sour worms and Swedish fish and just like some really yummy looking flavors that literally look exactly like candy. So who are these flavors being marketed to? And, you know, when they answer that question, obviously it's to kids. You know, I ask, why do you think they use flavors to market to young people? And I just kind of allow them to discuss. Again, it's about getting kids hooked early, and it's starting to click with them at this point, you know? So vape devices have been marketed alongside flavors that are super appealing to young people for quite some time now, actually. Flavors are actually cited as the reason most young people start vaping in the first place. Many vaping companies know that young people really like flavors, so they take full advantage of that. Yes, adults like flavors too. They don't need unicorn poop flavored vape to quit smoking, though. They just don't. But unfortunately, the tobacco industry knows that flavored tobacco and vape products are harder to quit because they're more pleasurable. So they know like this is even more addicting than just the nicotine that it's got in them. So it's really why we continue to see these flavors. You know, and then again, I say before we move on, one final question. How many vape flavors are there? And I allow students to kind of guess how many vape flavors there are. And there are actually over 15,000 different types of flavors, okay? To just really bring home that this is not about helping people quit smoking, adults quit smoking. This is about hooking kids so that they can have a lifelong customer. Okay, this is just one example of a social media ad from Juul. I ask if they've ever seen a social media ad before from a vaping company and kind of get a feel of the room. And then I talk to them about this ad specifically. Who doesn't look like this particular campaign for Juul is being marketed to? Keeping in mind that they claim to want to help adult smokers quit. You know, just allow students discuss what they see. Like, what do they notice? Do they notice that the girl is young? Do they notice that it's sleek and that it looks cool, that there's bright and fresh colors? What about this makes it more appealing to young people? And then I just explain that it's absolutely geared towards young people for all the reasons that I already listed, which really contradicts what they say that they intend to do and their goal in terms of helping adult smokers quit. They've done a really great job in making vaping look cool, fun, safe. They've even paid celebrities that young people look up to vape on their social media accounts. It's the same type of tactics that the tobacco industry has used for decades with a product that they know is harmful. But again, I just kind of say, why would they market to this group? And really, it's about making money, selling to kids, getting kids hooked, lifelong customers. It's kind of the same deal over and over again to just really drive home what the purpose of this is. So let's examine some of these old tactics and compare them to some newer vape marketing. What do you notice in these ads? What are the similarities? Anything different? And we just kind of discuss like, oh, they're in a similar pose. They're both really young looking. They're both colorful. They both have kind of a catchy phrase. We just kind of go through all these things just to, again, drive home that the tobacco industry is just kind of revamping old tactics and making it more fresh and modern because, you know, they know it works. You know, when they were able to hook younger kids way back in the day, they can do it. They can and are doing it again. So I'm going to read these quotes to you. But before I do that, I just, I let the students know that while the tobacco industry and the vaping industries are very smart, I know that they're really smart too. These teenagers are so smart. They can think differently about how they're being marketed to. And if you couldn't before, you should now be able to see some of these tactics and be more empowered to make some more intentional decisions for yourself and the people around you. So here are the quotes. The base of our business is the high school student. Today's teenager is tomorrow's potential regular customer. And the overwhelming majority of smokers first begin to smoke while still in their teens. It's no accident that old tobacco ads and new vaping ads are designed the way they are. They care about getting and keeping customers and money, even though the risks of vaping and smoking are clear. Okay, so now that we know a lot about vaping and tobacco use, we really want to talk to the kids about quitting. Those who want to quit or know a friend who wants to quit. Actually, over half of teenagers in Idaho who vape want to quit. But there's really not a lot of resources out there. So My Life Might Quit, as Lindsay explained earlier, is a free resource just for teenagers. It's free, it's confidential. You'll get help from a quit coach who will help you with a quit plan that's personalized to you. They will send you resources in the mail. But, with teenagers, maybe they don't want their parents to know. But you can always provide a different address, like get permission from a friend or from your school to have resources sent to that address instead of your home address. It's totally confidential. Your parents don't have to know, unless you want them to. There's also a chat. There's a chat option at mylifemightquit.com. There's the text number. Whenever they're ready, this is a resource that they can go to for free support. And then I just say, here's any questions. We answer questions. And if they're not comfortable asking questions, they can always email us or message us on Instagram. Okay, so that was a lot. I'm going to take a breather. That's the presentation that we give to students. Now, here's some information that we give to adults, and I want to give us some time for you all to ask Lindsay and I questions. So I'm going to try to get through this fairly quickly. We certainly don't want to share all this information with youth. We don't want to share every single piece of information we know about vaping to young people. And there are just some specific things that we tell adults, educators, caregivers, law enforcement, other folks who just want to be informed about this issue. So again, we talk about flavors with adults. I think some adults don't realize that there are so many flavors, over 15,000 of them, that look like soda, that look like candy. And again, it's adults like flavors. That's not the issue. The problem is that for every adult who quits smoking by vaping, I believe the number is about 80 youth start vaping. So for every one adult quitter by vaping, we're seeing 80 youth picking up a vape product. And that is a really big problem, okay? So what we kind of try to explain is that flavors are just not worth it. When there's an 80 to 1, difference there, that's a huge deal. And so getting flavors away from the hands of young people is really, really important. And I kind of alluded to this earlier, but most kids who vape start with a flavor, and that's actually about 80%. 80% of kids who vape start with a flavor. So we know that flavors are really are what, kind of a driving factor for why youth vape. Another issue is access. Lindsay talked about this. They talked about where kids get vaping products, and they get them from older friends, or they give money to older friends. But this picture is just a picture of a vape shop. And look how cool this place looks. It looks very sleek, almost kind of like a dim lit Apple store. Like it's got a very unique, cool vibe, and very appealing, to young folks. So this is kind of what we're up against in terms of, it certainly doesn't look like a gas station, and it's a lot cooler looking than just, your typical like tobacco shop. So this is something that young people, also adults, are really attracted to. So but something that we want to talk about with access to is about the age that kids can actually legally buy tobacco products in Idaho. So nationally, the age to sell nicotine products like vaping and commercial tobacco, cigarettes, chew, and things like that is actually 21 now. And it's been like that for, I want to say, 1.5 to 2 years at this point, maybe a little longer. But in Idaho, we actually, the state voted not to implement Tobacco 21. And so that creates a lot of confusion for vape shops. They don't understand which rule they need to follow, and some of them are, following the 21 guidelines, and some of them are not, because it's in Idaho, it's really not being enforced. So there's confusion among retailers, and that creates an even bigger issue, because we're finding that I think about 20% of kids are still getting their vapes from stores. So that confusion really just kind of compounds the issue. We talk again a little bit about social media with adults. I don't really think I need to go into that now, since we already did kind of discuss it, but just want to let adults know that these are the things that teenagers are seeing. They may not be seeing Juul ads anymore. They might be seeing advertisements for different type of tobacco products and vaping products. But I mean, you can't help but wonder, anymore, because when they see these types of things and it's easily accessible and there are flavors and the nicotine is so addicting, it really is, it's not a question anymore as to why so many young people are vaping. Talk a little bit about cost. I'm not going to go over everything on this slide, but Juul pods cost less than cigarettes. When Juul was really popular, it still is popular, but or things like puff bars, those are really cheap, and they're finding that cost. Teenagers typically aren't making lots of money, so it's good to have something for them. For them, it's good. Obviously, it's not good in general. To have something that they can easily purchase, and then they'll buy it for really cheap and then sell it, for more and make money off of it. And it's such a problem. But what's going to happen is that these products are slowly going to start costing more and more, then costing the person who uses them more and more. So the cost of addiction is financial, it's physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's all of those things. So we kind of just want to let adults know that this is kind of what it's costing kids. But as we'll see in the next slide, they're not just spending money on the vaping, like the vape or the vape juice. There are other things that they're spending their money on. So here are some vaping accessories. You'll see something that looks kind of like a little boom box. In the middle is literally a tumbler that's a vape. There are hoodie drawstrings that are actually vapes. And I mean, I think the problem with this is pretty clear, but why would an industry who claims to market to adults need to create so many accessories that allows people to hide them? So adults who vape, they don't need to hide that they're vaping, right? So why do we need these accessories at all? Well, the vaping industry knows that we need these accessories. They need the accessories because kids aren't supposed to be doing it. So it's really a problem, and we kind of just want to highlight for you all what some of these look like, so that if there's anyone in your life where you're just not quite sure, keep a lookout for this kind of stuff. Here's another one. The picture on the left is actually a picture of vape products that have been confiscated by our colleague in the Twin Falls area. You'll see a Sharpie that's actually a vape. We'll see a lot of things that look like flash drives. There's a pen. There's the hoodie drawstrings over there on the very left of the picture. So, I mean, these are the things that are being confiscated and that kids are using to hide vaping. There's that one that looks like an iPod Shuffle. And then, of course, as you see on the right, even ones that look like inhalers. So, you know, this is something that we just want adults to be aware of and to look out for. And again, this is not about shaming youth or making them feel bad, but just want adults to recognize that it's not just, they don't just look like cigarettes. They could look like anything really at this point, and to just be on the lookout. Okay, so our last slide is, this is my favorite slide, and it's find the vape, and they're already marked out for you. So if these were just laying out on a table in an office on a desk, you might not recognize that there are actually 4 vapes in this picture. So again, just kind of driving home that the vaping industry does a lot to make it accessible, make it easy, and make it addicting for young people, and it's really not for adults. So with that, we can open it up now to questions.
I have a question. Is there a similar resource in like any of our bordering states, like Project Filter or any of the programs that you guys do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll let Lindsay fill in any blanks, but every state has a Quitline. Anybody in any state can call 1-800-QUIT-NOW and get access to free resources, but every state is actually different in terms of what is offered. So Idaho has very unique offerings, but maybe Oregon's offerings are a little different. So they would just have to call 1-800-QUIT-NOW for wherever they're at to learn more specifically about what is offered there.
Thank you.
Yep. And then I'll actually move the slide. This is our contact information, my email address, Lindsay's address, and email address, and then our general Project Filter email. So if you don't have any questions now, you know where to find us.
Yeah, and I would also add that if you have schools that that would want our services, or any clinics or providers or student resource officers, anything like that, just shoot any one of these emails, shoot us a message, and we'll be happy to hook you all up with those resources and or talk to them and find out what they need.
So does anybody have questions for Lindsay or Cass? I don't see anything in the chat. I see a lot of thank you to you ladies for your presentation today.
Yeah, we're
thank you
really
all for having
happy.
us.
Yeah, thank you.
I really like how you touched on the fact that Idaho was one of those states that did not advance the 21 and older. I know when I was actually in Salmon, Idaho, we were talking about that with the youth, and the youth were like, no, it's 21. No, it didn't get passed in Idaho. So really driving home to our youth and our coalitions the amount of work we have to do to reach out to our respective legislators and educate them on the importance of getting on top of being a part of staying with the general consensus of the laws in the nation, because being outside of that is very confusing. So
yeah, it is really confusing. And I mean, technically it is a federal law, no matter where you are, but it definitely does provide some confusion for retailers. And, we're just seeing that not everyone is enforcing that. So, yep, it's definitely one piece of the puzzle for sure.
awesome. Well, if nobody has my stupid phone, if nobody has any questions, you guys will get 10 minutes, 12 minutes of your valuable time back to get busy on things that you have put aside to join us for this meeting. I really appreciate everybody being here, and we will see you on the October 4th for the fall prevention conference that we have, which is the registration still open for that if you have not registered yet. All right, guys, have a good day.